On a dazzling, crystal-clear morning, a sleek jet soared at 35,000 feet over an endless blue horizon as passengers settled into luxurious seats, their soft murmurs blending with the steady hum of the engines. In this world of perfect order, veteran flight attendant Evelyn Sinclair maintained impeccable decorum, until a shocking, unforeseen incident shattered the calm. A tender moment between a devoted mother and her restless toddler set the stage for dramatic chaos. Comment below with, "Where are you watching?" and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more astonishing stories. The flight began on what appeared to be an ordinary, crystal-clear morning, with the aircraft cruising at a smooth 35,000 feet over a vast expanse of blue. Passengers settled comfortably into their well-cushioned seats, their conversations a low murmur blending with the distant, steady hum of the engines. In this environment of quiet assurance, every detail was attended to with precision. The cabin was a picture of order, where each passenger's personal space was respected and the ambience exuded calm professionalism. Among the crew was Ms. Evelyn Sinclair, a seasoned flight attendant renowned for her impeccable service and strict enforcement of the rules. Evelyn prided herself on maintaining an environment of decorum in her assigned section. To her, every gesture, every word, was a testament to years of rigorous training and unwavering dedication to her role. However, on this seemingly routine flight, the veneer of control and order was about to be irrevocably shattered by an incident that would send shockwaves through the cabin. As the flight progressed, soft instrumental music played quietly in the background, and passengers busied themselves with their in-flight entertainment or simply enjoyed the tranquil passage of time. In one part of the cabin, a young mother, Lori Bennett, cradled her 2-year-old son, Tyson, gently in her arms. Tyson's restless whimpers were soft and almost inconsequential, a natural response to the long journey, nothing more than the innocent sounds of a tired child seeking comfort. Lori, with the calm assurance of a loving parent, whispered soothing words to Tyson, rocking him ever so slightly in hopes that sleep would soon overtake him. Yet, in the midst of this quiet domestic scene, Evelyn's attention was abruptly drawn to the persistent, soft cries of Tyson. To her, the sound was not merely a natural part of a long flight, it was a disturbance that disrupted the cultivated atmosphere of calm she so carefully upheld. Determined to preserve the serene order of her domain, Evelyn's irritation began to simmer. With a measured sigh and a resolve hardened by years of routine, she moved purposefully through the narrow aisle, her heels clicking authoritatively on the floor. As she approached the row where Lori and Tyson were seated, the tension in the air became palpable. Passengers nearby glanced up momentarily, sensing that something was amiss, but many quickly returned to their conversations or screens, not yet grasping the significance of the impending encounter. Standing beside the Bennett's row, Evelyn stopped and fixed her gaze on the scene before her. Her expression, usually composed and professional, had now tightened into one of barely contained impatience. "Ma'am, you need to quiet your child," Evelyn stated in a tone that was firm yet ostensibly polite, though it carried an undercurrent of irritation. Lori, startled and weary, responded softly, explaining that Tyson was merely tired and that she was doing her best to soothe him. Yet, Evelyn's resolve did not waver. It was as if every soft whimper of Tyson was an affront to the strict order she believed was essential in first class. In a moment that would forever alter the dynamics within the cabin, Evelyn's impatience reached a boiling point. As Tyson shifted in his mother's arms, his small foot inadvertently brushed against Evelyn's skirt, a seemingly innocent, trivial gesture. But to Evelyn, it was the final straw. Without pausing to consider the delicate nature of the situation, she reached down, grabbed Tyson's tiny wrist, and struck his hand sharply. The sound of the smack, though not overwhelmingly loud, echoed with surprising force through the silent cabin. Immediately, Gasps rippled through the nearby passengers, and a heavy silence fell over the area. Laurie's eyes widened in shock and horror as she clutched her son even tighter, her heart pounding with disbelief. Tyson's whimper turned into a sharp, pained cry that cut through the lingering tranquility of the flight, drawing the attention of everyone around. In that instant, Evelyn's carefully maintained aura of authority and control began to crumble under the weight of the collective dismay. This brief but explosive encounter, the slapping of an innocent child, set in motion a chain of events that no one could have anticipated. What began as an attempt to enforce order soon escalated into a public spectacle, hinting at the dire consequences that would soon engulf not only Evelyn's career but the very fabric of the flight's calm. It was a moment that revealed how fragile authority can be, and how a single rash act can shatter a carefully constructed world of control. Before the next phase of the unfolding drama, viewers, please take a moment to comment below on where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more astonishing stories just like this one. As the aircraft maintained its steady cruise at 35,000 feet, the initial shock of the incident still reverberated through the cabin. The orderly world that had once been so meticulously maintained was now permeated by a growing sense of unease. In the midst of this tension, the atmosphere became charged with whispered murmurs and furtive glances among the passengers. The soft hum of the engines and the gentle strains of in-flight music could no longer mask the palpable discomfort that hung in the air. Down in one corner of the cabin, Laurie Bennett cradled her toddler, Tyson, close to her chest. Just moments earlier, Tyson's innocent restlessness had been dismissed as nothing more than a natural reaction to the long flight. Laurie had been softly rocking him and whispering soothing words, her heart full of maternal concern. However, the shocking incident, with Evelyn Sinclair's impulsive act, had abruptly transformed her calm routine into an ordeal she could scarcely comprehend. The pain in her eyes, mingled with disbelief and sorrow, revealed how deeply she felt for her son who had suffered undeservedly. Evelyn, the once assured flight attendant known for her strict adherence to protocol, had begun to falter. Now, every step she took along the aisle seemed laden with regret and an unmistakable hint of anxiety. As she moved further away from the scene, the murmurs among the passengers grew louder. Some whispered in hushed tones about the abrupt violation of the child's innocence, while others exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their own disbelief. The previously placid cabin had now become a stage for emotional turmoil and moral reckoning. In between the scattered whispers, the faces of several passengers told their own stories. A couple seated nearby clutched each other's hands tightly, their expressions a mixture of shock and sorrow. Another family, trying to shield their young ones from the unfolding drama, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even those who had been engrossed in their own world, the quiet tapping on tablets or the gentle rustling of newspapers, were suddenly drawn into this unexpected drama. Amid this collective discomfort, Laurie's voice, trembling yet determined, managed to break through the heavy silence. With eyes glistening with tears and a tone that combined both anger and disbelief, she softly confronted the reality of the situation. "My son wasn't causing any harm," she murmured, her voice cracking as it barely rose above the ambient noise of the cabin. Her words, laced with both maternal protectiveness and a quiet defiance, resonated with many who felt the injustice of the moment. For her part, Evelyn had retreated into herself. The firm lines of authority and control that had once defined her now seemed to blur, replaced by an internal conflict. Each step away from the Bennett's row felt as though it carried the weight of 1,000 judgments. The strict routines and protocols that had governed her every action now appeared in stark contrast to the empathy and care that the situation so desperately required. As she passed by rows of disapproving eyes, Evelyn's face revealed fleeting moments of doubt and regret, a silent acknowledgement that her actions had disturbed the very order she had sought to impose. The cabin, once a symbol of calm and collected routine, was now a microcosm of conflicting emotions. The incident had forced everyone to confront the delicate balance between discipline and compassion, between the enforcement of rules and the understanding of human frailty. In that suspended moment, every passenger became an unwitting witness to the erosion of authority, and every whispered conversation served as a reminder that even the most steadfast of rules can be upended by a single impulsive act. In the midst of this swirling tension, the flight continued its course, its steady progress a stark contrast to the tumultuous emotions inside. The low murmur of engines, once a comforting background score, now seemed to underscore the seriousness of the situation. The cabin had been irrevocably changed, a place where order and control had given way to a raw, unfiltered display of human emotion. The ripple effects of Evelyn's actions were just beginning to be felt, setting the stage for an even more dramatic turn of events. As the lingering shock of the initial incident began to settle into a heavy silence, an unexpected figure rose from the stillness, a man whose calm demeanor would soon upend the already volatile atmosphere. In a row just a few seats ahead, a quiet yet imposing presence had been noted by many. His name was Zachary Gray, a man who until now had blended into the background as a regular first-class passenger. Yet, in that moment, his measured gaze and deliberate stance spoke of authority far beyond that of an ordinary traveler. Zachary's eyes slowly narrowed as he took in the scene before him, the distraught mother, Lori Bennett, clutching her son Tyson in a desperate, protective embrace, the disoriented passengers, and, most striking of all, Evelyn Sinclair, whose rigid confidence had now given way to a crumbling facade of regret. With deliberate steps, Zachary rose from his seat, setting aside the business magazine he had been reading as if every second were a countdown to an impending reckoning. The cabin, already tense from the earlier disturbance, seemed to hold its breath as he advanced toward Evelyn. In a voice that was calm yet carried an unmistakable weight of authority, Zachary addressed her, "What did you just do?" His words were not shouted, they were delivered with a measured intensity that demanded immediate attention. At that moment, the true nature of the confrontation began to crystallize. Evelyn's face paled, her eyes darting from Zachary's unyielding stare to the surrounding passengers who now listened in rapt silence. The room, once filled with the soft hum of the engines and whispered conversations, was now dominated by his presence, a presence that radiated power and control. Evelyn attempted to compose herself, her voice faltering as she responded, I only meant to discipline him. There was no harm intended. But her words fell flat in the face of the growing storm. Zachary's expression remained inscrutable as he continued, his tone measured and unwavering, "You put your hands on my son." The declaration hung in the air like a thunderclap, reverberating through the cabin and leaving no doubt about the gravity of the situation. It was in that charged moment that the full truth began to reveal itself. Murmurs spread among the passengers as those who recognized Zachary's commanding presence exchanged knowing looks. Slowly, it became apparent that Zachary Gray was no ordinary businessman or frequent flyer. He was, in fact, the owner of the airline, a fact that transformed the confrontation from a mere altercation into a moment of seismic proportions. For Evelyn, the realization hit like a sledgehammer. Her actions had not only harmed an innocent child but had also crossed the path of a man whose authority was absolute. The atmosphere in the cabin grew denser as passengers watched the drama unfold. Zachary's measured steps and piercing gaze left no room for negotiation. His next words were delivered in a tone that brooked no argument, "You will follow the protocol and face the consequences of your actions." Each syllable underscored the magnitude of his authority, sending a ripple of apprehension through the cabin. For those present, the incident was no longer just about a momentary lapse in judgment. It had become a defining moment that exposed the true nature of power and accountability. Evelyn's world began to crumble under the weight of Zachary's revelation. Gone was the once unassailable confidence, replaced by a dawning realization that she was now facing forces far beyond her control. The passengers, who had watched in stunned silence, now exchanged glances filled with a mix of shock and pity. The air in the cabin seemed to thicken as the implications of the situation sank in. This was not simply a disciplinary matter. It was an upheaval that would forever alter the balance of authority on that flight. In the moments that followed, the cabin transformed into a crucible of judgment. The unwavering authority of Zachary Gray resonated through every corner of the aircraft. Evelyn, now visibly shaken and on the defensive, was forced to confront not only the immediate fallout of her actions but also the irreversible damage to her credibility. The tension was palpable, each heartbeat a reminder of the inexorable shift in power. As Zachary's presence loomed large over the scene, it became clear that this was a turning point, a moment when the delicate balance between duty and compassion had been shattered by a single, irrevocable act. The confrontation set the stage for what was to come, a long, arduous process of accountability that would ripple through every facet of the airline. For Evelyn, the realization that she had crossed a man of true power was the beginning of a profound reckoning, one that would redefine her future and serve as a cautionary tale for all. In the tense aftermath of the confrontation, the entire cabin was enveloped by an oppressive silence that spoke louder than any words could. The revelation that Zachary Gray, a man who until that moment had been a quiet presence in the background, was in fact the owner of the airline, had transformed the atmosphere into one charged with finality. Passengers sat in stunned disbelief as the gravity of the situation settled over them like a heavy shroud. For many, the soft hum of the engines and the gentle glow of the overhead lights now seemed to underscore an unfolding drama far beyond the ordinary course of a flight. Evelyn Sinclair, once so confident in her role as the keeper of order, now appeared diminished, her rigid posture crumpling under the weight of accountability. The brisk, authoritative tone of Zachary's words had shattered the illusion of her untouchable authority. Every step she had taken earlier, every firm command, now felt like hollow echoes of a power that had been stripped away. As she stood rooted to the spot, her eyes flitting nervously between the shocked faces of the passengers and the unyielding gaze of Zachary, she could feel the damning judgment closing in around her. Meanwhile, Lori Bennett clutched little Tyson even closer, her face etched with a mix of sorrow, indignation, and desperate hope that justice might prevail. Lori's soft protestations, her quiet insistence that her son was not causing any harm, had faded into the background, overpowered by the stark reality that an authority figure had overstepped her bounds. The incident, once a fleeting disturbance, now loomed as an indelible stain on the flight's fabric of order. Zachary Gray's presence dominated the space as he moved methodically through the aisle, his eyes cold and determined. His measured steps carried an aura of command that left no room for negotiation. He halted before Evelyn and, with a voice as calm as it was decisive, reiterated, "You will now adhere to our protocols and face the consequences for your actions." His words were precise, each syllable resonating with the unyielding force of corporate authority. There was no anger in his tone, only the quiet, relentless certainty of someone who knew his power and wielded it without hesitation. The cabin's collective breath seemed to hang in suspended animation. Every passenger, every crew member, absorbed the magnitude of this turning point. It wasn't just a simple reprimand, it was an unequivocal declaration that the rules of conduct were not mere suggestions but inviolable standards. The ripple effects of this moment were immediate. Whispers began to circulate, some in admiration of Zachary's calm intervention, others in quiet dismay at the drastic measures being taken against someone they had once considered competent. Evelyn's internal turmoil was palpable as she tried to gather her thoughts, her face reddening with the sting of shame. Gone was the assured flight attendant who had so confidently enforced the rules. In her place was a woman now exposed to the full force of corporate retribution. Her mind raced as she attempted to justify her actions, but every explanation seemed futile in the wake of Zachary's imposing presence. The line between discipline and abuse had been irrevocably crossed, and there was no recovering that lost ground. With every passing moment, the unfolding drama became a lesson in accountability not only for Evelyn but for everyone on board. The incident had laid bare the inherent fragility of authority when it is wielded without empathy. The once quiet cabin had transformed into a forum for silent judgment, where every eye was a witness to the collapse of a career built on a foundation of rigid control. The stark contrast between Zachary's dignified composure and Evelyn's disintegrating authority served as a powerful reminder. Real power lies not in the force of one's position, but in the ability to balance rule enforcement with humane consideration. Zachary then signaled for a couple of security officers to step forward. Their arrival, swift and methodical, confirmed that the decision had been made long before this moment, a decision that would now seal Evelyn's fate. As the officers approached, the murmur of anxious conversations swelled momentarily before fading into a resigned quiet. The officers' eyes met those of the passengers, conveying silently that order was being restored, albeit at a steep cost. Evelyn's gaze dropped as she was gently but firmly escorted toward the front of the plane. Every step she took seemed to echo with the finality of her downfall. The once familiar surroundings of the cabin, the soft lighting, the comforting hum of the engines, now bore witness to her humiliation. As she was led off the aircraft, the realization dawned on her with painful clarity: her career, built over years of painstaking dedication, was crumbling before the eyes of everyone on board. In that long, sorrowful procession toward accountability, the entire flight became a testament to the delicate balance between authority and compassion. The consequences of a single, impulsive act had unraveled a tapestry of trust and respect, leaving behind only a stark reminder of the high price of unchecked power. For every passenger in that cabin, this incident was more than just a story of disciplinary action. It was a profound lesson in humility, respect, and the inescapable nature of accountability. As the aircraft prepared for landing, the scene that had unfolded remained etched in the minds of all present. The silent chorus of judgment, the somber expressions, and the heavy atmosphere spoke to a truth that would resonate far beyond this single flight: that power, when misused, can be taken away in an instant, and that true authority is earned through compassion and measured actions, not through fear or intimidation. As the aircraft prepared for its final descent, the atmosphere in the cabin was heavy with the burden of consequences. Every whispered conversation and every downcast gaze underscored that this was no ordinary flight. It had become a turning point, a moment when the true cost of unchecked power was laid bare. Evelyn Sinclair, once the embodiment of order and control, now moved through the aisle with a haunted, shuffling gait. Her uniform, once crisp and proud, seemed to hang loosely on her shoulders as if burdened by the weight of her mistake. Lori Bennett, still clutching her son Tyson, looked on with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. Her eyes, red from tears and indignation, mirrored the pain of a mother whose child had been hurt by someone meant to provide care and safety. Tyson, the innocent toddler, continued to cry softly, a sound that punctuated the heavy silence, reminding everyone of the cost of a single impulsive act. For Lori, the moment was not just about a disruption, it was about reclaiming the dignity that had been so callously stripped away in the span of a few minutes. In the center of this maelstrom of emotion stood Zachary Gray, whose unwavering presence had changed the very course of the flight. His declaration, "You put your hands on my son," still resonated in the ears of every passenger. With calm, measured steps, he had orchestrated a shift in power that left no room for negotiation. Now, As security officers closed in to escort Evelyn forward, his voice, firm and resolute, rang out one final time, ensuring that the rules of accountability were not just observed but enforced without exception. The security officers, efficient and unyielding, approached Evelyn with a professional detachment that belied the gravity of the situation. They gently but firmly took her arm, guiding her towards the front of the plane. Each step she took felt like an eternity. Every footfall echoed in her mind as she realized that her career, built over years of hard work, discipline, and authority, was now unraveling before the very eyes of everyone on board. Passengers who had earlier exchanged whispers now stared in somber silence, their expressions a mixture of pity, judgment, and a quiet, shared understanding that the rules of conduct could never be compromised without consequence. Evelyn's inner world was in chaos. In the solitude of that long, inevitable walk toward the exit, she was forced to confront the duality of her existence. A woman who had once taken pride in her ability to maintain order now felt utterly powerless. Memories of her early days in the industry, when her authority was unquestioned and her decisions respected, flashed before her eyes. Now, all those years of dedication and sacrifice seemed to collapse into a single, irreversible moment of failure. The very essence of her identity as a flight attendant, a guardian of calm and order at 35,000 feet, was being stripped away with every passing second. At the front of the cabin, near the exit, the tension reached its apex. The hushed murmurs of passengers, the piercing stares of her colleagues, and the steady, unyielding gaze of Zachary Gray combined to create an atmosphere of solemn finality. Evelyn could no longer hide behind her once unassailable veneer of confidence. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, she faced the reality that her actions had irrevocably damaged not only her own reputation but also the trust that countless passengers had placed in the airline service. The realization that real authority belonged to those who could enforce consequences without a shred of doubt had hit her with the force of a tidal wave. For Laurie, this moment was bittersweet. While she felt a measure of vindication in witnessing Evelyn's fall, she also knew that no amount of retribution could restore the innocence lost when Tyson was hurt. The scene was a stark reminder that discipline without empathy could lead to irrevocable harm, a lesson that transcended the boundaries of a single flight. As Laurie cradled Tyson, she resolved to ensure that her son's dignity was protected, that he would never be treated as an inconvenience in the name of order. As the plane finally touched down and the cabin lights brightened with the promise of a new beginning on the tarmac, the fallout from the incident was undeniable. Evelyn Sinclair's departure from the aircraft was not just the exit of a disgraced flight attendant, it was the culmination of a dramatic, public reckoning with power, responsibility, and the consequences of letting authority go unchecked. In that moment, every passenger, every crew member, and every onlooker bore witness to the harsh truth, that real power is not measured by the ability to enforce rules at any cost, but by the capacity to balance those rules with compassion and respect. The final scenes on board were etched deeply into the collective memory of everyone present. As security led Evelyn away and Zachary Gray resumed his place among the passengers, the entire cabin seemed to exhale, accepting that order had been restored. Yet, for those who had seen the incident unfold, the lesson remained clear, a lesson in accountability, humility, and the enduring impact of actions taken in haste. The reverberations of this event would echo far beyond the confines of this single flight, serving as a lasting reminder of the fragility of authority and the enduring need for empathy in all our interactions. This story serves as a profound reminder that authority and control, no matter how firmly established, are inherently fragile. It teaches us that even when we believe we have everything under control, one impulsive act, driven by impatience or rigid adherence to rules without empathy, can shatter the illusion of power and respect. The incident reveals the delicate balance between enforcing discipline and exercising compassion, emphasizing that true leadership demands understanding and humility. It underscores that our actions have lasting consequences, not only on our own reputation but on the lives of those around us. Real authority is earned through balanced, empathetic decisions, and when we lose sight of that, we risk not only our own downfall but also the erosion of trust in any system. Let this be a lesson to always approach our responsibilities with a blend of firmness and kindness, remembering that every decision can ripple far beyond the moment. If you believe in learning from every experience and value stories that delve deep into the human condition, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to support the channel. Also, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know where in the world you are watching from. Your engagement helps us spread these valuable lessons even further.